Welcome back to day 2. Thanks everyone for joining today. We're really excited to continue to talk to you about AppScan, and today we're going to show more about the product. We're going to do an amazing demonstration in a few minutes where I'll hand over to Sunil, but just to run over the agenda, we're going to talk a bit about where AppScan has come from. It's got a bit of a history. It's even though HCL software, it's the company I represent, is only about 3 years old. We actually turned 3 this week. AppScan has been around for many, many years. We're going to talk about what's hot in AppScan, where I realize there's the logos covering the word, but we're going to demo HCL AppScan, and then we're going to bring back around to the day 1. We're talking about this continuous security framework. So, quick introduction. My name is Rama Yunus. I look after the Australian New Zealand business here for AppScan. I'm really excited to talk to you today about our product. So a bit about AppScan. AppScan really started back in the late 90s, developed by Sanctum, and then acquired by IBM in 2007. And then in 2017, HCL, the organization I represent, actually went into IP partnership with IBM, and we started to support AppScan and a whole bunch of other solutions at the time. And we were helping them with the innovation and the support for a few products there. And we supported them throughout, helping them do some updates. And in 2019, when HCL acquired AppScan, we actually started up the software business. And since then, in 2020, we've been doing some great innovations, and we've improved on the solution from there, added much more in greater and, I guess, powerful testing capabilities, which we'll kind of talk over. And we actually did more than just in the last 3 years. We kind of have been a bit quiet. We increased our product team by 2.5 times, increased the research team by 4 times. And this is very important because when you look at security, there's always something new that's coming out with security. There's always a new hack, Log4j, for example, that happened most recently. And we understand, right, that security is so important, and which is why we've invested so much in our research division and the other areas, as you see on the board. So what's hot with AppScan? What is AppScan? Well, our marketing guys like to call it fast, accurate, agile security testing. I'll talk to you about how we do that. AppScan, from our perspective, is actually a complete, comprehensive, end-to-end testing solution. As you can see there, we do the most common testing solutions for your DAST, right? This is when you're trying to represent a bad actor. Your SAST, when you're looking at scanning your source code. Interactive analysis, this is quite new, and for those who don't know, interactive analysis is where we identify vulnerabilities using more of an application monitor that sits on your application server. We also will scan your open source components, which is you see up there, SCA. And then as well, we will scan also your exposed APIs and really identifying all the different integrations, all the plugins that we connect into, and scanning those together. And the key here that we want to make, and the point here is, there really is no silver bullet when it comes to application security testing. We saw before in the first session, we were talking about the evolution of application development. And the evolution really started when we first look at security, we started looking at testing our applications after it was built. But we saw that that was presenting too much vulnerabilities for the developers to have to fix. So we started to shift left. That's when source code analysis started to come about. But we thought that that wasn't enough, which is why we offered the complete solution, and we expanded the portfolio since. And I've put this slide up just to kind of give you guys a bit of a good depth of what our capabilities are in this space. As you can see, so uniquely we offer a whole bunch of stuff when it comes to the secure DevOps side of things. The most important being focusing on the fix. Right? This is an absolute massive concern for a lot of security guys and developers, where security testing capability or security testing reports will show thousands of vulnerabilities. but most of those will come up as false positives. So how do we actually make sure that we're not actually focusing on all the ones that are showing up that may not be actual vulnerabilities, and make sure we're really focusing on sort of the fix there? And then that management capability, right? How can we wrap that all together to operate and improve our application development? And Sunil's going to demonstrate that in a sec. And AppScan also put this slide up really just to show you we actually can support from the developers, from the security teams, and as well, it really helps consolidate all that information for management really to see and have that visibility there. And what we're really excited to demonstrate today is autocorrelation. And this is actually a very new feature. It came out this year. We've been doing all 4 testing, but for a few years since we acquired the product. We introduced that in 2020. And what autocorrelation does is really enhance the strengths of all these testing capabilities while reducing the weaknesses. And I really like this quote by Aristotle: "The whole is greater than the sum of parts." So where would you use something like autocorrelation? Well, autocorrelation is really around enriching what we do when it comes to our dynamic analysis scanning. So we do our dynamic analysis, we've got a bad actor that's penetrating into the application. And what we do is we grab those IAST and those SAS details and really get a better picture on what is coming up and what is being shown as vulnerabilities. Really prioritizing what we're seeing from the source code analysis and improving the accuracy of those results. Validating those source code analysis, so our developers say, no, that's not actually a vulnerability, that's a false positive. And we can say, well, no, from what we've seen from all the different testings that we've done, that actually is an issue that needs to be fixed, and reducing the numbers of vulnerabilities. Basically automating as much as possible and reducing the time to remediate these issues. So, how does it work? Here's where I'm going to hand over to Sunil to talk to you more on how does it work, and then touch on a demo. Thank you. Oops.
Yeah, put this. Thanks, Rami. So I'm Sunil. I'm a technical security advisor. I work for HCL along with Rami. And today we'll just touch upon an AppScan and see what are the good features that we have, how we can implement in our development lifecycle and make it more secure. If you are on DevOps journey, we can have that DevSecOps, the sec piece, we can get that integrated. But as he touched upon and showed you, like we have SAST and DAST and IAST and API testing and all those things, so we'll see how we can get things done along with the AppScan. So for the autocorrelation here, right, so how it works. Whenever we initiate an autocorrelation or an IAST scanning, it actually creates a 2 DAS. So based on what is, if we have a SAS scanning done for that or a DAS scanning done for that, so it creates 2 hashes along with it whenever we submit an IAST thing. And then it finds out the same vulnerability, whether it's available when we are performing the SAST, or it's only with the SAST and DAST along with it, or it also finds with the IAST thing. So IAST, as you mentioned, it sits as an agent. We put that in a server, application server, to keep an eye of all the traffic that comes in to the server, to make sure, like, okay, that request that comes in, whether it's from the genuine request or somebody is playing a kind of a mischief and man-in-the-middle attack kind of thing, and then manipulating those requests and sending it back to them. So it looks for those kind of things. Along with that, it could be any kind of an vulnerabilities that could be potentially be there, right? So it could be like SQL injection or a cross-site scripting. So anything of that sort, it looks for that. So it basically does is, like, whenever we initiate an IAST scan, it creates 2 hash files, one for DAST and one for SAST. If it is only SAST, then it creates just one, or SAST or DAST file, then it creates just one file and send it to the server so that the scanner can look into that and look for the vulnerabilities associated in that pipeline. So as I said, when we submit that, it creates 2 hash files. So here we represent that REST API 1 and REST API 2 is that 2 hash file that we just talked about. And looks from the two different perspectives. So if it is on the SaaS part of it, it will look from the coding perspective. It looks into the code and see where the vulnerabilities are, how it can be identified, and what can be done to ensure that it's a vulnerability. Whereas when it comes to the DAS part, it looks from the crawling. So the method that we use is web crawling. It looks into that as a bad actor is trying to access your application and trying to exploit the vulnerabilities that might be there within the application itself. So that was about the autocorrelation. There is something again which is very interesting for the AppSec is, and which comes up very often, is like if your application is not exposed to internet, how will you get that done? So in that way, we have a feature that's called private site scanning. A private site scanning, what it does is like it builds a kind of a tunnel between your firewall, application firewall, and the ASOC or the AppScan servers. So AppScan again has like two kind of thing. It's a SaaS offering which we call ASOC, which is AppScan on cloud, or it could be an AppScan on-prem. So if I put my focus here on the SaaS part, so you can see that there is a server and the tunnel gets directly integrated on port 443 over HTTPS, and we use the encryption TLS 1.2. And it talks directly to the presence service. So AppScan presence is something which is sitting behind your application firewall. Whereas if you are using the on-prem setup, where it gets integrated with your proxy, and then we have a tunnel client which builds a tunnel between your application organization firewall with the structure that we have. So generally, if it is an on-prem, we do not require it, but yeah, I mean, for the SaaS, it definitely requires. One thing to note here is like I have made a point at the below. There is 2 data center, and that is particularly for the on-cloud version of it, which is SaaS offering, and we require these ports to be open. Otherwise, it will not work. So that is something when it comes to the private site scripting, when your application is not exposed to the internet, this is very much required to open the port and build the tunnel before we proceed with the scanning. So having said that, now we'll look into the application itself and try and give you some demos. So today I'll be presenting AppScan on cloud, which is a SaaS offering. So you can simply Google it out, and you should be able to see the first link on your Google. So just get rid of those. Yep, so this is what it is. So it's cloud.appscan.com. Quick walkthrough on these ones. So here, if you have already a subscription on it, you can directly log in. But if you don't have and you are willing to try it out, we do have an option. You can start it for free as a trial license. We offer that for 30 days. But if you can mention that you were part of this meeting and this seminar, we'll try and give it for two months for sure. So just scrolling down on the page, and this is what the technologies that Rami touched upon. We do SAST, which is for the security, source code analysis, TAST, and all those things he already touched upon. Then there's not interesting anything here. One another thing here, if you see that the 2 data centers, so for the application on cloud, we have, this is hosted on 2 data centers. One is in North America and the other one is Western Europe. Is there a question? I see you. Okay. So, and that's why we saw that port needs to be open if you're trying to communicate with this. So that's why it is. One other thing is like, yeah, if you are not sure whether this AppScan on cloud can get integrated to your CI/CD or the environment that you have, you can click on this plugin and it will take you to all the lists that we have currently. So at this point in time, like IDE, if you see, we have a good number of presence which has out-of-the-box integration is available for all these IDEs. If you have interested on the CI/CD part of it, if you are on DevOps journey, have a look at these where you are fitting it. If it's not available here, just drop us a note. We'll try and see how we can get that done. But nothing to worry, because we are also exposing RESTful APIs and we have a Swagger in place. So this will help you to build your own RESTful APIs and get the integration done. We'll touch upon the other things in a bit, but one interesting thing I would like to bring it up here is like HackEDU. This is again something, it's not with the HCL, but it's more of an other side where if your developer needs some kind of a training and enablement from how to get the fix done on the vulnerabilities that AppScan is identifying. If he's not aware of the concepts of like cross-site scripting and stuff, he can enroll there, and we do have an integration built with them, so that like all the identified vulnerabilities will get listed on them, and then you can plan the training and enablement for your developer there. So going back to this, now I'll try and log into this one to walk you through the application itself. Okay, so it has accepted my login and I am in there. So right, so when you log in, probably I have many applications already been listed down here, but you might not have one. So what you need to do first thing is like create your new application. It's as simple as like letting the application know what is the which application you will be interested to scan with, and just give a name, some name, like we can give something, whatever is your application name, and then kind of a business impact it makes. What the application does, it will have some impact on your business. It does not make much of difference, but it's good to have that if you are identifying any application vulnerabilities within that, then how much you should consider the impact for. So for this one, we'll go with the medium, but yeah, you can definitely change it later. If you have a business unit, we can key in there that as well. It again depends what is the business unit that you want to associate with. Default group is something where, say if you have multiple applications and you wanted to tag it to one group of it, is it like a sales application or a marketing applications, and you can group that together so that any policies that you define later point in time applies to that default group, so you don't have to redo again and again. Other things are like pretty basic thing, confidentiality requirement, how based on your applications, how important it is for your line of business, you can set this up. And that's not mandatory, so even if you don't, it does not make much of difference. It will still work the same way that we are trying to, the scanner will scan the applications for. So let me skip all those things. Personal information, who is the owner of it. So if it's more like, if security personnel wants to know whom to reach out to for any clarifications, he can reach out to. So this is just an helping things. Yeah, few more application description, and if you have a kind of an URL. So for me, yeah, I do have an URL, which is these ones. So this is a dummy banking financial site. Probably it's a dummy demo sites only, so we don't transact on this one. So yeah, I'll key in this one for, and this we generally use for our demonstration because this is full of vulnerabilities, all types of vulnerabilities, to show them like how it might work when it gets into your environment there. Once you are done with all the tabs, filling in on the informations, just simply do a create button. So it will list down the application in the list of applications, and then it also takes you with an opportunity to create and scan. It's very simple to get in scanning started with. So here, if you click on this scan button, this pops up, which gives you an option to create other 3 types of scans. It depends on you, where you are and what you want to do. So for matter, like let's get started with SaaS scanning. So I'll select this SaaS, and what you'll notice is like it will expect some kind of a drag and drop of your file. So whether it's in source code, depends on your language that you're using. It will expect that thing to be done. So it could be in a raw source code you can upload, or even the compiled one. But if you don't have one, IRX file, and it accepts only IRX file. Now, but if you don't have one, what you can do is like it's an GUI application extension that's been done on top of it, so that it helps you to build an IRX file. You can download it from here based on your OS, what you have, and get that installed. So I've already installed it. Probably I'll bring that up. Not going to download again. So while it comes, I'll walk you through the other things. Yeah, so here again, it takes you the same plugin thing that we just saw, and it will help you to get into your IDE if you wanted to get the integration done in your IDE. I believe that it is. So AppScan GUI, yeah. So AppScan GUI looks like this. All it does is like it asks for your location where you have stored your source code. Once you direct it to that, probably I'll stick with it. I'm happy with it. Let's see. Then you have an option here at the bottom. It's asked for like what kind of scan that you want to do. When you say all security scan, that's by default. That includes your statics analysis and software composition analysis, both SCA. But if your license does not permit that, or you have not taken, or you have chosen only for one to go ahead with, then you will have to do, like, say if you are doing only for the SCA, which is the software composition on third-party libraries, you will have to select this. But if you select all the security, it does both of it. If your license does not have, then probably one of the checkbox will not, radio button will not be enabled. Here again, like default types, it gives a kind of a little note down here for Java and .NET, what are the kind of things that it will select, do, and for other languages, what it means. It's always better to go with the default, but it covers all the things together. So just say continue. Okay. Oh, I did only SCA. Go back. No. Okay. So probably it's trying to do something else, but yeah, I mean all it does is like it will list down all the files that you have here, and then you can manually select all by default you can actually by default it will be all, but you can manually skip few of them if you think it's not required, and then just say continue out here. So again, it asks you like if you want to go ahead and get things integrated, you can do that. But at this point in time, you are just interested to get the IRX file done. Now, because this is a separate GUI, it needs to talk to the AppScan on cloud. Probably it will ask for an ID and the secret key. We can provide that. Yeah, so it's asked for ID and secret key. All I need to do is like go to this thing in the API section and say generate. So here I have the ID, just pass it on here. So it builds the connection between the two, and then it will take it from there. Now, one thing to notice here is like run a personal scan. So this personal scan is something if a developer wants to just run a scan before it submits to the larger audience or the QA team and want to look at the defects that it might pop up. So he can just check this, and this will not go to the dashboard. That is, findings will not go to the dashboard, but it will be sent to the developer. So that's for the personal scan. Again, there's something here, there's a trade-off between speed and the option. So if you are doing for the first time, it's always better to go with a thorough scan. But if you have already scanned it a number of times and you have just made a very simple change, and probably that might not be a very crucial one, then you can always go with the simple. So all it does is like it takes it goes the speed is faster on a simple one, but chances of getting the vulnerabilities is slightly reduced. So if in thorough is like 99%, I would say in simple it will be around 80% of the vulnerabilities will get identified. So and then now here we need to select the application that we have. So I think there you go. We just created this one. I'll select that application and initiate the scan. So it will prepare the scan and we can monitor that on our dashboard here. So we don't have to wait there and see like okay, where it is and what it's doing. Maybe I'll just search for it. Okay, so here you see it's one scan is running now for demo OS, and that would be the static one, probably it's running. So similarly for this, if you wanted to have the dynamic as well, it's dynamic is much more simpler. You don't have to get all those RX file done. All you have to do is like just go to this thing and create a new scan. All we need to do here is just give the URL. I'll pass it on again. Oops, where's that? Include the domains and subdomains because we wanted to get everything scanned, and it asks you for the which stage or environment we are. It's always good to do in the testing or the staging environment because if you do in the live production environment, it might impact a bit on the performance of the application itself because it tries to attack on your application as an attacker, a malicious person who is with the ill intent. So yeah, it's always good to do on the staging, but yeah, you can certainly do that on the live environment as well. There's no harm in doing it, but yeah, I mean, just be aware of it, like it will impact a bit. Then just review that, and if you are good with it, again, you have this option of run as a personal scan, and that will send only for the developers, the identifying things. But if you don't check it, then it's totally okay. For here, once you are done with the scanning, it will send you an email. If you have configured that, it will probably ask you for that. But for the time being, we are not doing it. You have an option. You can definitely get the report and say like, okay, it's done when the scanning is done. So now I've submitted it. It will start crawling into that. And it's initiated already. So once it's done, we'll see that result there. So looks like we have completed the static scan here now. Yeah, so it has identified 13 issues. So let's have a look at those issues now. So here if we look at this, for some reason I have only scanned for the open source component of it. But if you click on any of these things, you will see the information on the issue detail, which is like what the API is, what is the CV related to it, why it identified it as an vulnerability. Discovery method here is SAST, which is the scanner that has been used to get that done. Again, where is the location of it? So this is the place where it identified the issue. If you get into more details of it, like related things, so it gives you the fixed group ID, which we'll look into in a minute in our reporting thing when we download it. At the same time, it also gives you like some details on like what exactly that CV means and why we should consider and how we can get rid of that CV. So it says like upgrade to this version. Currently you are not using that, and that is used probably 2.00. So yeah, so it says it's expecting to upgrade to 477. Now, if you look at the other tab, which is like how to fix, it also gives you much more detail on what are the issues are, the cause of it, some risk, why it thinks that's a problem, what we can do to get that recommendation, fixed recommendation to get rid of it, some CWE scores. So this is where it is. And if you click on this, and then external links as well if you wanted to get information more around the same thing. Comments here, so if you think like, okay, I don't want to get this fixed for some reason, you can add a comment here and then save it so that it resides into the system. So whenever or whoever is reviewing it will get to read of that. Some audit trials, this is generic stuff. But let's look at other resource from the other application. For some reason I didn't do it for static one. Let's see here what we have. So similarly here again you will see all those information. This is for the static scan, but not for the one which I just did from the other application. Its application is same actually, but yeah, I mean previously it was done. So again here the parameters, all those details, what is the static scanner, where it is, locations, all other things that we get to see here are the fixed group IDs. When we refer to that results, we'll get into that detail of it. Then why we think it's an issue and how we can fix it. So this is like a little interesting here to see the code snippets also it gives and tell like, okay, this is where your problem is and you should consider fixing it. It explains what is the issue, where exactly that could be a potential problem. On the similar line again, it takes you to the external sites where you can get more read on the kind of an issues that's been identified. So what are the kind of potential CVEs or the other things that we get to see here? We'll get there in a minute. Probably I'll refer you in the documentation to show you the complete list of things that we identify. But as I said, right, when we have any policies that define for the security, we can tag that into our default group so that whenever we are doing the scanning, it will build a kind of traceability and it needs to be taken care of. So out of the box, if you look at it from the industry standard perspective, it covers all these 25 most dangerous software weaknesses of 2021, ISO standard, and then NIST, OWASP top 10, 2021, even 17 is considered for mobile as well. We do have some threat classification 2.0 from the regulatory compliance perspective. Again, if you have a requirement, it does that as well. So GDPR and PCI, FISMA and other things as well, so SOX compliance as well. So if you have any of these requirements, definitely we can, when you build your application and do the scanning, this definitely is taken care and list out all the reports. In the reports you can see, and it will tell you why it's not compliant and what you should do to get the compliance done. Now let's look at the sample report which gets generated. Yeah, but before that, let me show you how you generate the report at first. So so for the generation of report, if you are done with the static one, there's 3 buttons here, like just click on the reports. You have an option to download it in all these formats. Based on your requirement, you can generate that. So for this matter, let's do a PDF. Here the security reports, when you say, it just gives you the static analysis reports that we have. But if you have a specific requirement to get into the details of like industry standard report or a regulatory compliance report or even for the open source component report, you can do that as well. So for this example, anyway, I have that downloaded. I'm not going to download it again as an sample. So let me take you through this one. So if you download it, probably this is what you'll get to see. So here I've downloaded for all. This is for the SAST one, this is for the DAST, and this probably is for your okay, yeah, so this is for the regulatory compliance one. Let's look at the SAST first. So fixed group, so here if you look at it, probably what is the number? It's 81 security issues that it has identified. Now it becomes like a little bit overwhelming for the developers to look into every one of that issues and fix it. So that's why what we did is like there is something called fixed groups. Now this helps you to group it all the related bugs into a kind of a similar feature, similar groups, and then with the recommendations of how we can get this fixed at one go. That helps you, the developers, to fix everything together. So if you look at this now, for the cross-site scripting, you have close to 20 issues that's been identified. And if you want to get rid of all those cross-site scripting issues, 20 at a time, then we need to refer to that fixed group and see for what recommendation it brings in. Now, let's scroll down a bit. So here if you look at it as an example, so this is for our fixed group ID, blah, blah, this one is there. We can have a look at that one. And then if you look at this snippets, it says like, okay, where is the trace and what is the source? So how do we get to that label? And obviously, where is the source in the sink? Where exactly we need to do that? And this is the line number, this is at line number 40, and this is what we get to outcome is. So, and if I go to that fixed group ID, so this talks more on that. So if somebody has marked as noise in past, then it will appear here and then say developer knows like, okay, it's a noise, we don't have to get into that. But if you how to fix on the cross-site scripting, this is where it takes you like, okay, what is the risk, what is the cause, what is the exploit example, and how we can fix it. So this gives you a good detail of it, and obviously all those CVs and the external references as well. Similar things appear in the DAST as well. For this example, let's take any of one of them, like a SQL injection one. So here again in the SQL injection, you'll see all those basic details, and then it takes you like, okay, this is the cookies parameters, request and responses that we have from your code snippets, and then walks you through how exactly it did and where is the issues that it thinks it could be in potential one. So like example here, column number 26 and things. So yeah, developers can get into the details of it. He'll get a helping hand there. Crossing it a bit, looking at the time check. So regulatory compliance, again, it gives you like, okay, these are the compliance requirement and where you do not fit and how many issues are there against each one of them and how we can fix it. We already have seen the other one. And this is for the open source component, and this is pretty simple. So here it says like, okay, in this version of your library is a vulnerable one, probably you should get recommended fix over there. So to upgrade to the other versions of it. So this we saw on SaaS DAST. We haven't touched upon IAST. Probably let me bring up my VM because IAST, as Rami said, and we need to have an agent installed on our server side so that it will keep in watch on the network traffic. So let me see if my okay, maybe I am not required to code there. Let me see. So if I need to go ahead and get an interactive scan done, it will again ask you to do something which is like based on your application. So at this point in time, we support this Java, .NET and Node.js. And based on your type of application that is there, we will have to download it and then just deploy it in the server. So if you look at this one, let me bring up the server. Just making sure that Tomcat is available, up and running. So this is the agent, sec agent that we see here that actually gets deployed on your server, and then it lets you get that interaction done. So it's as simple as that. So let me go back to that. So the more you interact with your application, actually, it looks at the data points and then keeps an eye on it and let you know like, okay, where the correlation is and how we can get that. I'm just trying to pull. Okay, looking at these dashboards, it's like based on how many scans that you have done, it will keep appearing over here. But I think so here as an example for autocorrelation, here if you see like, okay, we have 5 issues that's been identified. This is something for the old one, but we can have a look at that. So if you see here, and if I just go to any of one of them under that, so it says like this has been done by the IS scanner. So it based on like how we interact with applications, it will keep looking at those other vulnerabilities from there. So let me see if you have anything from the other scanners as well. I'm sure we must have something. Yep, so there you go. Here we have this for the static one. So it's autocorrelation helps you that the way we saw in the fixed group, the difference is like fixed groups gives you the grouping only for the particular types of scanning, either it's a SAST or DAST, whereas autocorrelation gives you the 360-degree view, keeping at like, okay, we have identified the same issues in the SAST, in the DAST, and that is why we think it needs to be fixed, and this is where it is. So it builds a kind of a 360-degree view for the whole thing. So that was like quick one. We just have like another 5 minutes probably. Yeah. So yeah, cool. So I'll head back to this.
Do you want me to close it?
There you go. Okay. So connecting the dots now, we have seen this like, okay, on the SAST part and DAST part, what we can do, in which phases we can get started the security with. But this is like just a one line kind of a pipeline, right? But we wanted to make it continuous, and that's the whole point, right? So all these findings we can get in the dashboard that we just saw on the metrics and reporting thing, and that helps us to see the big picture of the application, where the issues are, what we can do with those vulnerabilities and findings that we have got. And then that the other things, the other phases, like if you have like red team who is doing a kind of an external penetration testing, or even from the RAS part of it, which is there in the production runtime application security, that feeds you into your application security audit and security part, right? And if you have the governance and policies that we saw from the requirement standpoint, that the policy feeds like, and that becomes the benchmark for you to take a measurement on like what we can do and why we should do whatever we have that thing. Now all these things can feed each other to enhance the whole thing together, experience that together, that okay, there were some issues, even though the policy is in place, what we can do to get rid of it, and that's where we need to feed it back to the governance so that it can make up the other set of policies or required and update in policies, and then feed it back to the chain with the updated policies. So this is how we'll complete the whole cycle. It's highly recommended to make use of all the available technologies that we have and get the secure, the SDLC more secure or the DevOps pipeline more secure. So that is what it was from the continuous security standpoint. We do have some things to Flash. I think we have briefly touched upon on our plugins part, which is mainly for your integrations stuff. So we do have that. From the DevOps perspective, HCL is not only limited to application security and AppScan. We do have other products as well, which can help you to meet the or complete the whole portfolio of the DevOps. Not getting into the details of it, but one thing to highlight here is like HCL Accelerate, which is mainly for your value stream management. But yeah, it definitely helps if you build that together in the pipeline. It helps you to reduce your bottlenecks and get improve on the value that you are trying to build in together. So yeah, we are excited to say that like we are a market partner for leader in Leaders Quadrant. So that's all from me. Remy, you want to add something?
Yeah,
Thanks.
so how much time do you have? Just 5 minutes? Yeah, so just looping it all back, so on what Sunil mentioned with the continuous security loop, going back to what I spoke about, when we're looking at security, right, it's not we do a test, we've got the results, and now, okay, we'll go fix them and we'll forget about it. All right? It's something that we've got to continuously improve. And we see with continuous security and with this framework that we've supported and built with other organizations, we continuously feed that back. So it's making sure that we're not just fixing security once, but we're optimizing it and we're automating as much as possible. And that's the area that we support clients on, making sure that you're continuously improving, automate as much as possible. And as you can see, given the breadth of the portfolio, we can support in every single dev phase of your lifecycle. That's it. Thank you guys for joining us today. We appreciate your time and enjoy the rest of the conference.